Welcome. You are now linked to your telecom retirement, the podcast that dials you directly into over 30 years of experience from certified financial planner Dennis O'Keefe. To make your telecom retirement your go-to guide for successfully rerouting your future, press the follow button. Now please hold while we connect you to your host, Dennis O'Keefe.
Hey, how are we doing today? A little bit of a change in format. I took some time off and wanted to kind of bring it back and try to improve some things. And what we've done is added a co-host. I've got RJ Malik here as co-host, kind of playing foil to my situation. Keep me on task at times because I can ramble a bit. Kind of play the Bud Abbott to my Lou Costello at times as well. Hopefully make me sound funnier. But RJ, welcome. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. I'm looking forward to these podcasts.
Awesome. Let me ask you a question. How much online shopping do you do?
I do a little to moderate
really?
Amount of, yeah.
I am a nut for it.
My wife is a nut for it.
Is she?
Yeah.
What's the strangest thing she's ever bought online? Keeping in mind this is a family show.
Yeah, I know. I can't recall. I mean, she's bought a ton of sneakers online.
Okay.
And they're all sorts of colors. She'll buy coffee mugs online if she sees something, especially if it's cat oriented. She loves her cat. It's her cat, not our cat. It's her cat. And I'm fine with that. But I wouldn't say anything really strange. And I guess if it was really strange, she's kept it from me. So,
right.
So it's just she'll do all sorts of shopping. She'll do any kind of food shopping she'll do online.
Really?
I go to the store.
I'm a store guy.
Yeah, I do the cooking, most of the cooking, and I like to go to the store and see what I'm buying.
Yeah.
But when I visit my mom down in Florida, I'm gone for 2 weeks. She'll then shop online. She doesn't go into the store.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've always been a big online shopping guy, big stuff. I mean, groceries and things like that. I've never really gotten into. My kids love doing that. I'm more the hard goods. And I used to love going to the mall. That's the strange thing. I used to love walking around the mall, and I look now and I go, the few that are left, and go,
yeah,
I wouldn't be caught dead in those places.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, clothing, things like that. And, it's strange. And this leads me to kind of, the rant I have today is my most favorite and least favorite, package delivery company is FedEx.
Okay.
I will say they are the greatest and the worst company simultaneously. And I'll tell you what I mean is this happened just last week. And it's happened a dozen times over the last year. Is I order something online, it's shipping from the West Coast, and I get an email from FedEx. Hey, we've got your package. It'll be delivered in 7 days. Great. Okay. It's coming from Ontario, California, Tacoma, Washington, wherever, 7 days. The very next day, I get an email from FedEx. Hey, your package is going to be delivered in 4 days. We're going to get it to you 2 days early. Wow. Thank you, FedEx. I think this is great.
Right.
Okay. So off I go. I check tracking. It's still in Ontario, California, or Tacoma, Washington. The tracking must be slow. That's all it is. Even though they're usually the best tracking, their tracking must be slow. So it gets all the way until the day before they say it's going to be delivered. So 3 days later, I get an email. Your package is coming tomorrow. So I immediately go, let me go check the tracking. Oh, no, it's still on the West Coast. No, there's no way. It has to be. It has to be that they forgot to actually, click it in at the various stops across the country. The next morning, I will get an email, first thing in the morning. Hey, Dennis, package is going to be here today by 7 p.m. I immediately go to the tracking. It's already open on my phone. There's a Safari window waiting for it. I click on it. It's in St. Louis. It's not getting to me today.
Right.
It's like, all right, okay. So They probably send me 2 or 3 emails during the day rescheduling the delivery for the same day. Oh, it's not going to be there by 3. It'll be there by 5. It's not going to be there by 5. It's going to be there by 7. I've gotten like 8 emails already from FedEx. At about 9 o'clock that night, they go, yeah, we don't know where your package is. We're really sorry.
No.
We'll let you know when we figure it out. Okay. The next day I check, it's in, it's within a state of here. It is arriving imminently. Check the tracking. Yeah, we don't know where it is. We can't. We're not sure when it's going to get to you. Okay. The next morning, which is the original delivery morning, I get an email from FedEx. Package is on the truck, waiting to get delivered. Yeah, I know. That's what I expected in the first place. That day it gets delivered. I get a final email that night from FedEx with a picture of my front porch. Hey, your package was delivered, and it was on time. And I go, if you said nothing, if you said absolutely nothing for that entire week, don't tell me it's early. And if it shows up early, I'll think you're great.
Yes.
But instead, we're going to tell you this and then make you frustrated over something that if we hadn't told you would have never happened in the first place.
I had an experience with FedEx similar. I actually was coming back from Florida after visiting my mom, and I drive back and forth because I record at her. I have a home studio.
Sure.
So I bring my home studio with me, and I record from my mom's place. On the way back, I left my wedding ring in a hotel that I was staying at. Yeah. Fortunately, it was there. They found it. The hotel was fantastic. The people got it, packaged it, and said, hey, listen, send it. You have to send it. We can't send it to you. You have to make the arrangements. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. I have no problem with that. I called FedEx, and I had a similar nightmare. They not so much as far as, it's going to arrive. It's how to get it delivered. They went there, and the person's like, well, where's the package? And they were like, well, you were supposed to bring the package. No, we weren't. You were supposed to have the package there. The formal FedEx package.
Right.
This went back and forth for 2 days. So, and it finally did get to me, but it was not easy.
Yeah.
Not easy. It was, I don't understand. It just seemed like a lack of communication.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah. And to get to today's topic, that's a lot of times what we see with 401ks these days is they've always been a black hole to me, but it seems like they're more of a black hole and creates the same fog that FedEx has been creating for me for the last year. It works out in the end, but it's still a fog. But yeah, with 401ks I was looking over the weekend, and a couple times a week I'll look at LinkedIn on my phone, and it'll come up with these milestone events. And I had 3, and I have a lot of connections within LinkedIn, obviously because of what I do and the podcast and everything else. A lot of people, like thousands of people that work for Verizon, and almost as many that work for AT&T. And there were 3 separate people that had work anniversaries over 30 years. Which was shocking to me. It's just, you don't see that anymore. So, they're the anomaly. They're the unicorns. Most people will have 3, 4, 5, 6 jobs, and you end up with these orphan 401ks. My oldest daughter, I'd like to say that she's followed completely in my footsteps, but she has 3 orphaned 401ks that me and my son-in-law, who works for me, have beaten her over the head and tried to get her to consolidate them into one over time. And we do this for a living. It's a pain in the neck. It winds up, people are very, it's out of sight, out of mind. I'll say it that way. It really becomes that.
Because it's not, especially if you're not, I was in radio I'm still in radio for over, close to 4 decades now.
Wow.
And the situation is, I'm not a money person.
Right.
So for the first 10 years of my career, I was never concerned with retirement or 401k. I was concerned with my next step. Where am I? What company am I going to work for? What radio station am I going to work for? So, my 401k is not in great shape, and our money, our financial advisor, my wife and I have someone here in Pennsylvania, and that he's been working with us and he's great, but we're behind, and that's because that was not a focus for us.
Yeah,
and I think that happens to a lot of people. It's not easy, or it's intimidating. I should say it's intimidating.
it is.
And so it's easy to say, I'll get to it next week.
Yeah.
And it becomes next year.
Yes.
And it just keeps going.
Yes. And the worst is if you have a number of employers, the amount of money you're going to accumulate at every single one of them isn't a lot of money. So when you look at it, you go, it's not a lot of money. It's not a big deal. It's not making a whole lot of money, because, if you make 10% on a $20,000 401k, it makes $2,000. If you make 10% on a $200,000 401k, it's $20,000. And you really see that as people just ignore them, they leave. And, and I've seen a lot of this lately, is people coming in with 3, 4, between husband and wife, 4, 5, and 6 different old plans.
Right.
And it's a lot of work for us to move that, to get those consolidated. And we do this for a living. It's a hassle. And I don't quite understand why the industry makes it so hard. It just doesn't make sense. There's no standardization of transfers. For example, if you had your account just a regular brokerage account or an IRA at Fidelity, and you wanted to transfer it to Vanguard, you would sign some papers at Vanguard, and Vanguard would take care of going to Fidelity and pulling the money from from Fidelity to Vanguard in a matter of days. With 401ks, it's a very complicated process. So we find that a lot of people don't wind up touching it at all. They get very nervous about that. And then you get situations where, and I had this just recently with 2 of someone's plans, is the plan either the employer they got bought out by somebody else, or they changed 401k providers, and now it's a whole new set of stuff. They don't have login information.
Right.
They don't know how to get in. They don't know what the investments are. Not only were they not watching the old investments, and I'll talk about that in a second, but the new investments, it might have gone, the new company might have said, we'll try to match what you had before with the options you have now, or we're just going to stick it all in money market. And the people just haven't watched it at all. And that gets really frightening of you can't get access immediately, and you don't know how it's being invested.
Yes, and then you run into a situation that I had where my company declared bankruptcy.
Oh,
and before they declared bankruptcy, they froze their contributions to the 401k. So, it didn't grow as much as it could have if they matched my contribution, because I was maxing it for the first time in my career. As I'm getting older, I'm realizing, I can match, I can maximize to, I think it's 10% of my weekly salary. And so I decided to do that,
sure.
30 something years into my career, but that was not important to me at the time. What was important was my career and getting it going. And you just don't think of that. And, what would be the solution? How do people educate themselves, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Yeah, absolutely. Just, it's a matter, and I want to talk about that, is what worries me as the financial advisor when I look at these situations is these accounts aren't being watched. Investments were picked maybe as much as 20 years ago and haven't been looked at since. And they might be okay. They might not be. The client just isn't watching it. And the other scary thing is when you change jobs, not only do you have to sign up for the new 401k, but you've got that kind of that waiting period before you can jump into the new plan. And if you have 4, 5, 6, 7 jobs, that could be a couple of years worth of contributions, especially early in your career. You tend to see the shorter term employment early in your career. You might have to go 1 or 2 years between jobs, and then you kind of spread it out. Well, those early years are the years that to maximize the contributions, and you're actually minimizing it. And that's kind of the scary thing for an advisor looking at it, thinking, man, how much further behind the 8 ball are we at this point?
Right. Yeah. It really, I mean, we're my wife and I are approaching that. And,
sure.
You know, I plan on working till I'm 70. There's
no heavy lifting in your job.
No, there's not. It's just the mouth. Make sure the throat is taken care of, the mouth is taken care of, and I'm good to go. So I can work till I'm 70.
Right.
And even beyond. And with the setup now I work from home.
Yeah.
So I'm not traveling. I'm not, I don't have to worry about a commute or anything like that. And so I have no problem thinking that way because I like what I do. I like,
sure.
This type of informational exchange. It's a learning experience for me as I'm working.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking to that. But, what about these people who have, jobs that are physically demanding and, they're not going to be able to work till they're 70.
Right.
How do they get themselves in a good position?
Right.
Especially if they're, again, when you're in your 20s, you're concentrating, you're focusing on your career. And the money, the retirement, who's thinking retirement in their 20s?
That's right. Yeah, it's so far away. It is light years away at that point. To be fair to Verizon, AT&T, the old regional bell companies, the Ma Bell stuff, they do a pretty good job of really trying to push people to contribute to the 401k and stuff. But it's that consolidation of those old plans that's really, really the challenge, is making sure, because the difficulty with having, let's say, 4 or 5 plans is, like I said earlier, it just seems like it's not growing. What's going on with it? And if you can kind of lump them together, it creates a bigger amount of money. And number one, you can see the successes and failures a lot closer, so when it's happening. And number two, it makes it a lot easier to manage that. There's a couple of things you can do. You can roll them all, or usually roll them all, into your current active 401k. So you could just keep rolling it to the newest employer, and that does work. The other option is to just roll it to a self-directed IRA at Fidelity or Schwab or Vanguard or wherever, and manage the money that way. There are advantages and disadvantages of both. Looking at the 401k, it's easy. The money goes into that plan. It's all in one single place, and you can manage it there. The disadvantage is every time you move, now you've got to move that amount of money, which you'd have to move anyway, so that's not that big of a deal. The IRA means having an extra account, but probably the biggest drawback to a 401k is the limited investment options. There's not a lot of investment options. And if you're okay with the limited investment options, that can be a good idea. But we find a lot of people say, when they start looking at real portfolio stuff, they say, man, there's kind of weaknesses within my 401k. That's when you want to start looking at a self-directed IRA. It really depends on a company by company basis.
That's interesting. I would not even think about doing a self-directed account, because I don't have the time nor the interest. And I'm the type of person, if I'm not interested in something, I want nothing to do with it.
Sure.
It drives my wife crazy, because there are some things that, that we have to get taken care of. And if I'm not interested, she has to drag me kicking and screaming to get it done. That's just the way I am. I've been like that. I was like that with school. I was not a very good student, but once I got into radio, I was all in. And so I guess I'm just, I'm tunnel vision on things.
Right.
I don't think I'm alone in that type of
Absolutely
situation.
not. No, absolutely not.
So what do you tell a person like myself? Let's go back and talk to me 30 years prior to today.
Well, 30 years prior from today is you got to put in as much as you can.
Okay.
That's the real thing. But, is again, Verizon, AT&T, they do a good job of really kind of, the corporate culture is, I don't care how old you are, put a bunch of money in. If you can't afford it, figure out a way to afford it. And that's really impressive and makes a big difference to them in their 401k balances later on in life. But invariably, they're going to have to deal with these old accounts and consolidate them. And it's a black hole. It's like dealing with FedEx. It's a little bit of a black hole, and I kind of want to just shine a little bit of a spotlight on that of really what's going on there. Is you're going to have to reach out to the existing 401k provider and find some things out. And I want to talk a little bit about that, because they're going to ask you some things, or they're going to present things to you, and you're going to say, well, do I have to, or why, or things like that. So you're going to have to contact them. You're going to have to figure some things out, and they'll let you know. And it depends on it. Some companies will do it online completely. I will tell you, Fidelity sometimes does it online, sometimes does not, based on the corporation they set it up for. So with Verizon, they won't let you do some of the stuff online, but some of it they will. With other companies, it'll be a completely online process. Sometimes it is a ridiculous amount of forms that they will require you to fill out. And I will tell you, in past experience, overall, if an insurance company is running your 401k, that's going to be the worst one. And I don't know why. Insurance company, if you think about it, buying insurance, like life insurance, because those are mostly life insurance companies, they love paper and they love forms. So if it says insurance or assurance, expect that it's not going to be done online. Expect that it's not going to be done over the phone. Expect that you're going to have to fill out forms.
Yeah, that would be a problem for me. It would, because I know myself.
Right.
You have to be honest with yourself.
Sure.
And if you start giving me paperwork to fill out, I'm in trouble.
Right. Absolutely. And it's shocking. Is there are still companies out there. It's been a couple of years since they've bumped into them, only because they haven't bumped into certain companies. But there are certain 401k providers that will require things like a signature guarantee, and that's that stamp you get at your local bank. It's only one person at the bank that has it. It's usually one person per several branches. So you can go to a separate branch, prove that you have an account there. They'll look at your ID. They'll look at everything, and they'll say, okay, yep. And they'll stamp a signature guarantee to make sure that you're you. For a 401k withdrawal, all right. I mean, it maybe if it's 1982, but it's not 1982 anymore. It's 40 years later. Right. These companies still have it. Sometimes they'll require the receiving firm to write a letter that says, yes, we can accept this. Again, it's not 1982 anymore. If it's a financial firm in 2024 or beyond, they're going to be able to accept an IRA rollover. It's a fact of life. And it's just a matter of, these are companies that are trying, that their old school way was, if we make it hard, just like with you, if we make it hard to take the money out, they won't take the money out.
Yes.
Hey, wait a second. That's not right. And I bump into that a lot. And you're as you can, attest to from personal experience, to some extent it does work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's an issue again, because if you're not focused on money, your financial future, you're just focused on paying your bills and expanding your career. You're not focused on retiring.
Right.
It's just something that you're thinking, I can do that in 10 years. I can do that in 20 years. And that's what I did. And, that's part of the reason why I know I'll be working for a while. and unfortunately, I don't mind. I'm fine with that. In fact, that was part of the plan.
Right.
But at the same time, I'm fortunate. My job is not physically taxing.
Right.
So for the people who have a physical job, that really, can hurt them big time.
Yeah, most certainly. Most certainly. So I would encourage people, if you have multiple 401ks out there sitting around. Figure out if you want to send it to your existing current 401k or an IRA. I'm a big fan of IRA because I like control. I can see what your point of you're a big fan of the 401k because it makes it easier. There's no question about that. But consolidating, that's just going to mean reaching out. Don't be afraid. For the most part, it is even the difficult companies. I'll say this, even the difficult companies to deal with, when I've talked to them on the phone, have not given me a lot of static. And you'd expect the most static when I'm doing like a 3-way call with a client and we're calling XYZ financial company to roll out that 401k. 20 years ago, you used to get static from the customer service rep because they didn't want to give you the money. And who are you again? And why are you calling? They just don't do that. They're really pleasant people. It's just, you're taking the money out. They know you're taking the money out and they're really nice about it on the way out. So be encouraged about that, but get a hold of them. Log in if you can, because sometimes you might get lucky and you can do all of it online. If not, it's a phone call. Call them up and say, hey, I'm trying to do this. It may be online. So with Verizon, if you separate from service from Verizon and you need to move your 401k elsewhere, it's a phone call. No paperwork necessary, very handy. And if it is paperwork, for the most part, it'll be 1 or 2 pages. It's very rare to see more than that. But being able to consolidate those accounts and make sure that they're being managed correctly for your future is probably the most important thing.
Very good. Okay, and if someone watching this podcast wants to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
They can reach out in the show notes. There's info on jumping on our website, shooting me an email, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, all of that.
It's okay. But why don't we do this? Why don't you give out your website?
Sure.
It's a good reinforcement.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's successfulmoney.com.
Thanks, Dennis, and we'll talk again in about 2 weeks. If you want to contact Dennis, you can go to his website, successfulmoney.com, also Facebook page, which is Successful Money Strategies, Inc. He's got a LinkedIn site, and, of course, you can give him a call, and that information, again, is on his website, successfulmoney.com. Until the next time, just keep planning for the future.
Thank you for listening to Your Telecom Retirement with your host, Dennis O'Keefe. Please click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. You can find information for Dennis, our guest, or resources mentioned in today's episode in the show notes. The information in this podcast is for educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Every individual situation is different. You should consult an expert before making any changes to your financial situation. For more information, please see our disclosure information at www.successfulmoney.com.